Hi, video request about Washington D.C. I do video requests again. I'm back in business. Give me a request. Give me a request. I'm gonna get pissed. Give me a request. I'll say it 10 times. Give me a request. 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 Because my computer is a piece of shit. It's always restarting. So I need something to do while I'm waiting for my computer to restart. I just did a half-hour long video, and I was like smoking weed for like 5 minutes before I did that video, and my computer is still restarting. Still trying to, well, the computer's restarted, still trying to reboot Dreamweaver. So anyway, somebody wanted me to do a video about DC. I actually did that video, but the problem is I tried to upload it and it didn't upload, and I'm such a lazy fuck. Like, this is how much of a lazy fucking loser I am. All I can do is work on my website. I was too lazy to upload it again. I couldn't upload it again. And then I filled up my phone and I had to delete videos, and I like forgot about that video and I deleted it. What a fucking idiot. It was like a half-hour long video. Anyway, so this is just a winger. I'm winging it. I'm not doing like research into DC. Now, this is somebody who lives in DC. I looked at his video and he's actually in DC. So what do I think about Washington, D.C.? Well, that's an extremely appropriate video for me to do because I am a historian of Rome. And if you're interested in Rome and you're an American, if you're an American who's a Rome scholar like I am, in fact, there's a lot of things about Rome that I'm the number one world scholar in the entire world. Like, more than anybody, and not just Rome, but Atlantis and Greece too. Like, I've discovered things that nobody else knows. And I need to go into Wikipedia and actually edit the Wikipedia pages because they're wrong. One of them is, and I know this is kind of, I'm getting sidetracked, but you know, if you're going to talk about Washington D.C. and really talk about Washington D.C., I'm sorry, but you have to talk about Rome. Washington D.C. and Rome are sister cities. I don't know if they're official sister cities, but um, but they should be consecrated as official sister cities. Like, they should make a plaque or a statue in Washington D.C. and in Rome, like the same exact plaque, with like Rome on one side and D.C. on the other, or something, because they are literally Rome is D.C. is the child of Rome. Like, like if you could have one city being the child of another city, like colonies, for example, like New York, or whatever. Uh, DC is the child of Rome, and so anyway, let me just say the one thing about Rome that I know that nobody else knows. Toot my horn some. There are these big boats in this lake just south of Rome called the Nemo boats, and there were these boats that Caligula built to party on, and then he sunk them, and then we found them because the lake got drained, and then they took photos of them and they made a museum, but then the Allies bombed them and they got destroyed. Or maybe no, yeah, they just got destroyed in a fire from the bombing, or maybe Mussolini bombed burnt them. No, I think they got bombed, but so they're destroyed forever. But at least we have photos of them from the 30s, and they look really cool. But everybody thinks that those were the boats that Livy was talking about, because you see the link on Wikipedia, and those ain't the boats that Livy was talking about. The boats Livy was talking about were boats that he did from Rome all the way down to Naples, and those were gigantic boats. So there's a boat in Rome that the Romans had that we don't even know about. Huge boats. Like how the Chinese had huge boats and we did. The Romans did too. We don't know about them because we think that they're the freaking Nemo boats. But I discovered that. So there you go. Woohoo! And there's another thing about Athens that I know that nobody else knows, and Atlantis, but I'm not going to get into that because this video is about DC. So DC uh, is the capital of America, and it was first. The White House was first created in 1810. The first president to live in the White House was Jefferson, I think. Um, and The first president, Washington, lived in Philadelphia. That was the capital, and then they moved it to D.C. right at the beginning, like right after we started and won independence, because they wanted to have um, a capital for the whole country. Um, and it kind of ties into. I find it fascinating when you can relate architecture with literature, because in the world of literature you have, and philosophy, politics, you have the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists, and this is a extremely under spoken about and studied aspect of intellectualism is the federalism versus the anti-federalists, because people don't talk enough about the relationship, the constant relationship between the anti-federalists and the federalists. People either talk about the anti-federalists versus the federalists, or they talk about Republican versus Democrat, but it's the same contiguous argument. The Federalists believe in a strong central government, and the Anti-Federalists believe in a strong state government. So nowadays, it's the Republicans who were into the states, and the Democrats who are into the federal government, and it's kind of the same thing with the cities. So they wanted to make the city so that they could have a strong federal government, for all the reasons that you would want to have a strong federal government. To have a good military. Um, um, you could have a good court system that could protect people from other parts of the country that could be getting mistreated. Um, Unity, international relations, all kinds of reasons. And one interesting thing about Rome is that it was more of a federal empire than other ones. And that was one of the things that made it more popular, more powerful than the other ones, because they taxed more and they had more of a strong central army, and that could then do amazing things like build a road network and architecture and leisure guys to write stuff and collect knowledge and all that kind of stuff. Um, And so there's definitely a lot to be said for a strong federal government. And they had a really good balance, ancient Romans. They allowed people to have their own religions. Um, um, they allowed people to, all different races, and to come into Rome and exist in Rome. And um, so I think, and Rome was a very cosmopolitan city with lots of different races. If you see the HBO, I think it was pretty much like any HBO's miniseries Rome or any other things about Rome. You see black people and all this kind of stuff. I think it's kind of accurate. Maybe not as many black people as there are in the cities or in modern day shows, but there were races of all over in Rome. And so DC, I think, is like that. DC is I think beautifully situated like that. They originally wanted to make Philadelphia the capital, but they were like, you know what? There's so many people, and so much money in the South. Let's make it more in the South. And so it's situated perfectly, north to south, because of that. Oh, and then it's also got a harbor, like seafaring vessels can, or at least from the olden days, could go all the way up the Potomac up to D.C. And and I think after the World War II, all of the white people, all the white guys went to war at World War II and left, like, to do administrative jobs and stuff in World War II. And so there was a lot of room to move for the black people from the South to move into Washington, D.C. And so Washington, D.C. is now, I think, maybe like half black or most black. And I think that's a good thing, because you want your capital to be a microcosm of the macrocosm, a representative of the entire country. And black people are 12% of the country, and so you'd want at least 12% of of DC being black, and all the other races too. And but it's also fine, good that there's more than the representative of black people in DC, because black people represent poor people, and you would want a lot of poor people in DC because you would want DC to be a place that would support poor people, because you would want DC to be a place that's extra supported by the nation. You know, that's one problem with Roman Empire. You know, people like to give all these different reasons for why the Roman Empire fell. Maybe it was because there was lead in the pipes, which made them retarded. Maybe it was because there was like ice ages that brought the barbarians across the Danube into Rome, or there was the Antonian plague that emptied out the Roman Empire, and they weren't able to repopulate it fast enough, so all these barbarians came in who weren't of their culture, and then they toppled the culture, or it was greed, or nepotism, or rich people not paying their taxes. But another reason that you could give for why the Roman Empire fell was that they abandoned the city itself of Rome. You know, Roman Empire was beautiful from the beginning and powerful from the beginning because it was centrally located, very strong federal empire, meaning they had this spiritual subconscious bastion of civilization that you could always count on, that was you could always trust, and it was always there. You know, like if there, and even with their army, if there was a revolution or rebellion somewhere, they always had an army that they could bring it to. But when people go and they bring, rebels of a rebellious army to Rome, they probably break them at that point, because they see Rome and they're like, oh my God, look at this. One of the biggest, a lot of rebels from ancient Britain were brought back to Rome, and one of them was brought back to Rome, and he was like led an army. He actually fought the Romans' legions. They captured him, brought back to Rome, and then they just let him live as a rich guy. They gave him a villa, and he had slaves, and he was like, he lived out his life, because he was like, Rome is awesome. They changed his mind, and that didn't happen with Vercingetorix. They strangled him, but with a lot of people they did that, and so anyway, it's just this place that could, like that movie Gladiator. Russell Crowe had never been to Rome. Marcus Aurelius goes, at the very beginning, right before he died, he goes, why do you love Rome so much when you've never been there? And he goes, because he was the character, Maximus, was from Spain. He goes, oh, look, finally my freaking Dreamweaver is finally starting to load. He goes, because it represents civilization, and we love civilization, and we need civilization, And so they never should have abandoned the city of Rome, because when they abandoned the city of Rome and they moved the capital up to Ravenna, so that the emperor, because that point, the emperor and the leader of the army was the same thing, and so their leader of the army / emperor could be closer to all the barbarians that he was fighting up there in like Germany and stuff. And so now I'm going to open the page and see how many hours this takes to load. And so he oh my God, I lost my train of thought. Oh fuck. Yeah, so I need to not get sidetracked, man. When I do that, I can't get back on track, because I smoke weed for these videos. So anyway, so Rome is like this centrally located place that you could count on to be civilization, and so they moved it up there, and then after that, it didn't get the same taxes, and then the Romans were seen as just decadent people who were just living off the dole and useless, and they lost respect for all things Roman. They weren't maintaining the buildings, and then they even took the copper roof. I think it was Justinian who took the copper roof of the Pantheon off, so he could make swords to fight the barbarians. Now, if they'd have never moved the capital out of Rome, then they could have like protected the egg. Like when the human body dies, your extremities go cold first, and then your heart is the last thing to go, just in case they save you at the last minute. You may lose your fingers, but at least you survive. And that's how they should have treated Rome. Like, instead of just abandoning the city, The Roman Empire was the empire because of the city, because there was a city there that could control everything, and they had a central government with democracy. You know, it was a democracy. It was a the republic was a democratic republic with like 300 senators who would have to agree on things, and up to 600, and uh, and so yeah, as soon as you get turned into an autocracy, everything goes to hell. And so if they had kept it a democracy and kept it in the city, it wouldn't be the Roman ruins. Like everything would have been up to kept until to now. And I think in order to fix Rome, we need to rebuild Rome. And so that ties into DC because DC should, I think, be supported, given extra taxes to help keep it up. A place that you could go and not and like get good social welfare, and it's not a dangerous place because now it's one of the most dangerous places in America. My family camped, my brothers and my mom camped out in the car in the wood in a park out there, and some cop was like, "Get out of here! You're about to get murdered," you know, because it was like dangerous, and that's not right because it's the capital, and it has all kinds of like subconscious effects, ramifications when you let your capital, when you let your the shining city, eternal city. They called it the eternal city. It wasn't exactly the eternal city, was it? You know why they called it the eternal city? Because they were hoping to God that it would be the eternal city, and it ended up not being. But it still is. You just rebuild it. And so they should do the same thing with DC, and I think they should even perfect it. Because when they made DC, they made it a diamond that was 10 miles by 10 miles by 10 miles. By 10 miles, like that. And Roman kingdom was 20 kilometers in diameter, which is pretty similar to the size of Rome. One thing you want to know about the founding fathers of America is that they were all really into Rome. When you read the Federalist Papers and even the Anti-Federalist Papers, for some reason they're writing the papers anonymously because maybe they didn't want to get caught and beheaded because we hadn't have actually figured out the whole war yet. They were going to get beheaded by the British if they lost, and so they were giving. One guy was Publius. They were naming themselves after like the best Roman senators. Roman senators, Romans from the Roman Republic, not Roman emperors. Okay, it's important to pay attention to that. Our founding fathers modeled America and DC off the Roman Republic, not the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire. It was the Roman Empire because of the Roman Republic. Okay, so it's democracies that give powerful societies, not autocracies. So, so yeah, it was like Publius and then Scipio and all these other guys, and so now I don't think they would have modeled as much of the physicality of it much because they wouldn't have known so much about the sizes of things, but they probably did. Well, actually, they did because a lot of those guys did talk about the land law and land size and stuff, and so they probably knew, yeah, that ancient Rome kingdom was about the same size as the city of the District of Columbia, which is interesting to think about. Like if you rewind 3,000 years, 2,500 years, and you're looking at a kingdom, an ancient kingdom, that's DC. They should build a big city, or I guess, and I guess you could see the edges of DC even that far from the Washington Monument. That what they need to do is they need to finish Rome. I mean, they need to finish DC. After the Civil War, Maryland got back their part of DC out of some stupid law, jealousy law they had. They need to refix that law. DC needs to get the rest of their western side of their diamond back from Maryland so that they can put the Pentagon back inside. And then what they need to do is they need to build a big wall that's 10 meters high because it models like the ancient world that you can then ride your bicycle around. That's a 40-mile bike ride. People would be doing that bike ride all the time. It would be jam-packed. It would be a great bicycle ride to do, and you get to see all of DC. The whole thing would be lined with restaurants, telescopes to look at the city, towers to look over the city, and then when you're in the central of the of Washington Monument, you could actually see the edges of the wall, and so then you could imagine in your head this is the size of an ancient kingdom, and it will take you back in time, and then Rome and DC can become like a living museum. It already is a living museum, but why not make it have the museum section not just encompass the the uh, the institution, whatever it's called, the museum institution, over there, the Smithsonian Institute over there in the central of DC, with all those museums, you make the whole city a museum, and so then you have like the walls going around and just monuments to ancient Rome and ancient history all over the city, and turn the city actually into a place of learning, because that's what Rome was. If you look at a map of Rome in the year 210, there are like probably hundreds of little mini classrooms, these little half domes, these exedras, and where people could just go and do class. And so I imagine when you rebuild Rome, you rebuild hundreds of exedras. So all these YouTube stars or YouTube people, you go and you just find an exedra and you actually make your YouTube channel a real life physical thing. It's not just digital over in Rome. And then you could go and look at the Rome website and you can see like, and you just type in and you go, oh, okay, what YouTube channels are here at Rome right now? What person or who's going to be scheduled to be at Rome in 6 months? And it could be even the smallest little channels, because you have all these tiny little exedras that are the size of classrooms. So even anybody could go and do live YouTube shows in Rome together, and then you just do the tour of Rome. A pedestrian city, ride your bike around, rollerblade around, no cars. There was no cars in the past. Same thing with DC. You could make DC a place of like YouTubers come from all over the world come to DC and give their little YouTube shows from all their little exedras in the parks everywhere. And that would really help give really balance out the federalism versus anti-federalism. People give proper respect and reference to a powerful federal system, and then but also as a central place where they could bring all their different cultures from around the country, from their states, to there. Because just because you have politicians who live in other states and then come to DC to represent their people, you should have the people be able to come to DC also to represent themselves in all their different little classrooms and etceteras, and give their speeches to Congress and all that kind of stuff, And so I think the future of DC is bright, and there's more to do with DC than probably any other city, with the exception of maybe Rome, in the future. And it could be a really beautiful place, because it's kind of gone to hell, People from DC are like your typical East Coast assholes. It's dangerous as hell. It's poor. I mean, yeah, it's not right. And they're thinking about making it a state. I think people who live in DC definitely should be able to vote for the president, and that they should, get as much or more power than is regular. I don't know the details of the laws and stuff, but I think they also should make Puerto Rico a state as well. So that's what I think about Washington, D.C. I mean, if you grew up there and you live there, you should be proud of it, and you should try to create a culture, not try to move out just because it sucks. I know people who are from D.C. who like claim to be from Colorado, even they're from D.C., and it's stupid, and get jealous of people from Colorado. Like I met somebody from Jersey who was like that. Anyway, DC could be a great place, and it's like a lot of trees. It's in the South. Take advantage of that. I mean, you look at it and there's just trees everywhere. Great crop. Beautiful city to make it like a natural city. Doesn't have to be a concrete jungle. When you ride your bike around the edges of it, you can look in and just see trees and different types of trees with different colors, and judge what part of the city it is, not from the buildings you're looking at, from the trees you're looking at. And then you could have mountain bike trails all throughout the trees, and feel like you're in the wilderness, even though you're smack dab in the middle of the city. So much you could do with DC. And then the river. You could have triathlons in DC. You could have endurance swimming in DC. You could encourage people, because it's south enough, the water's not that cold. People swim all the way across the Potomac and all over in boats and everything. Yeah, it has everything. Maybe in the future, when they have a lot of money, they could build a big old mountain in the middle of DC or something, or a huge tower. I don't know, for bungee jumping. Anyway, if anybody wants me to do any more request videos, I'm up for it. Talk to you later.